Hello and welcome back to another gluten-free, dairy-free dinner recipes video. I am going to be showing y'all 3 new recipes, and today we are going to start with Instant Pot Nachos. Okay, I'm going to show you everything that you will need for this. I am going to link the Pinterest recipe that I got this idea from. The only thing is that I do tweak it a little bit, so I'll show you or I'll explain some of the changes. But you will need a pound of some ground beef. The recipe I'm going to link says 1 can of black beans, 1 can of corn. I prefer black beans, so I just do 2 cans of black beans. And then you'll need some rice, some olive oil, an onion, some chicken broth, and then you will need either a packet of taco seasoning or you can make your own at home. So I just made this from scratch at home instead of buying a taco seasoning packet, but you can do either. I will link this recipe for how to make your own down below as well. It's just a recipe I found from Pinterest. So I made my own taco seasoning, but you can also just buy a packet. And then the original recipe also calls for some salsa to mix in with this. Again, I tweak this a little bit and I leave the salsa out of the Instant Pot and use it more as a topping later. But again, I'm gonna link the original recipe so you can just follow that as well. So to begin with, I'm gonna go ahead and just start chopping the onion. And then while I'm chopping the onion and draining the black beans, I'm gonna go ahead and put my Instant Pot on saute mode and go ahead and get this cooking while I chop the onion and drain the black beans. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, so I have cooked the ground beef in the Instant Pot, and then I drained the excess fat and grease from the beef, added in the onions, and then let the onions kind of cook and saute with the ground beef for about 2 to 3 minutes. And then now what we're gonna do is add in our taco seasoning and our black beans and then our chicken broth. So we're gonna mix those together first, and then the rice is going to go on top of that, and then we're gonna do a little bit more of chicken broth on top of the rice. So I'm going to go ahead and put 2 cans of black beans in the Instant Pot with the ground beef and onion mixture. And then, like I said, I'm gonna link this taco seasoning recipe. The recipe I'm going to link for you, I halved that, and so I'm using the whole half version of it. So like for instance, the original recipe calls for 6 tablespoons of chili powder, and this has 3 of it. So I just halved that whole recipe that I'm gonna link below to make the homemade taco seasoning. And then I think I added about 1 teaspoon, either 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt with my taco seasoning mixture, just to add salt to the whole thing in general. Okay, so I've just got the beef, the onions, the black beans, and the taco seasoning. So I'm just gonna mix this all together really well before I add in any chicken broth or the rice. Okay, so now I'm going to add 2 cups of chicken broth to this before I put in the rice. And so the original recipe that I'm gonna link, it uses salsa in the Instant Pot. So in order to make up for that lost liquid, I do 2 cups of chicken broth with this mixture, and then I'm gonna do an extra 1/4 a cup after I add the rice. I'm just gonna mix this together a bit. Okay, so it's a cup of rice. And you don't have to mix the rice, you just kind of want this right on top. So I like to kind of like even it out a bit. And then I'm just going to add a 1/4 a cup of chicken broth on top of that. So I kind of press it in a little bit. You just don't have to mix the rice, just kind of let it sit on top with the liquid covering it. Okay, so that's everything that you put in here. So now I'm just going to put the lid on and make sure you turn that little sealing valve on the Instant Pot to sealing and not venting. And then we're gonna pressure cook this for 15 minutes. And then once the 15 minutes is up, we're going to do a quick release at the end once it's done with its 15 minutes. And then from there, we're just going to get our toppings ready. So everything else is optional. So like my husband, he has his sour cream and cheese. I bought a dairy-free like shredded cheese to try out. And then I'm also going to make some guacamole. And then I also bought like a can of refried beans that I'm going to heat up as well as a topping. And then we also have salsa as a topping. So you can kind of do whatever you want for toppings. So once that all comes together, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so the 15 minutes are up, and then I just did the quick release. So now you're just gonna kind of mix in all the rice with the meat mixture and everything at the bottom. So this is going to be like your main mixture to put over your nachos. Normally what Ryan and I do is that we'll just get a bowl of this and then put like all of our toppings in a bowl and then just use chips and scoop like a mixture out of our own bowls. Okay, so nothing too fancy. Just kind of put any toppings that you want, and then we just take our chips and just dip it straight out of the bowl. Again, you know, you could do standard nachos where you have like a plate of chips and then kind of put all the toppings on top of the chips. You could do that too. But this is it for recipe number 1. Okay, for our next gluten-free, dairy-free dinner, I'm going to be doing Mexican stuffed bell peppers. So for this recipe, you're going to need 6 bell peppers, and I just do 2 of each color. So I've got like 2 red, 2 orange, and 2 green. And then you need a pound of ground beef. You need 24 ounces of salsa. I have 2 14-ounce containers, but you need at least 24 ounces of salsa. You also need 1 onion, a cup of rice, chili powder and cumin, and then some salt. So essentially how this recipe works is I've already got the oven preheated to 350. We are essentially going to cook the filling in a pan on the stove first. You eventually mix in like the salsa, the rice, the seasonings all in a pan on the stove. And then while that's cooking, I'm going to cut out the peppers, the tops of the peppers, and then you essentially stuff the peppers with your mixture from the stove and then stick them in the oven for like the remainder of their cook time. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on making the filling on the stove. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning is that all of the ingredients that I mentioned are for the actual stuffed bell peppers, and then obviously you can add more things for toppings. And then you can obviously just eat it plain. It's still delicious. You can also top this with more salsa or avocado. You know, there's a lot of different things you can do topping wise, but I just wanted to throw that out there. That the ingredients I mentioned at the beginning are what you need just to actually make the peppers, and then you can obviously do anything with your toppings. Okay, I've got the stuffing mixture cooking on the stove. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut out the tops of the bell peppers. I've already washed these, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut out the tops, and then I'm gonna use a spoon to kind of scrape out everything inside. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. The next thing is I'm going to prep these to go in the oven, well, to be stuffed and then go in the oven. So this part in the recipe, I'm going to link the Pinterest recipe that I'm following. I just kind of forgot that I changed this portion of it for myself. So on the recipe that I'm gonna link, it says something about like basically trying to soften the peppers in the microwave, soften them before they go in the oven. And it mentions like wrapping them in plastic wrap and sticking them in the oven, or sorry, sticking them in the microwave. And that just sounds like plastic in the microwave just doesn't sound like something I should do. So I forgot that the very first time I ever made this recipe, I just kind of skipped that step. So the actual recipe essentially tells you to put the peppers in a microwave safe dish with some water in the bottom, cover it with plastic wrap, and then like heat them in the microwave. So I just skipped the microwave step. And so this is the pan that I'm going to use for them to go in the oven. So I kind of do the same thing it's telling me, I just don't stick it in the microwave. So I am still going to fill this with like some shallow water, and then you just kind of stick the peppers in the water. But I also fill the inside of the pepper with a little bit of water too. It just kind of helps soften the peppers essentially, and I've never had any problems doing it that way. I just really didn't want to do the whole like plastic in the microwave thing. That's the only thing that's going to be slightly different from the recipe that I'm going to link, but I just wanted to try and explain that. Okay, so the peppers are done, and I did end up measuring all the water situation when I was filling the pan with water and filling the peppers with water before I put like the stuffing mixture in it. So I did 1.5 cups of water in the actual pan, and then I did a tablespoon of water inside each individual pepper before I stuffed them. And so once they were stuffed, I put them in the oven at 350 for 20 minutes and then brought them out, and now they're done. So from here, you can put whatever toppings you want. Normally, I will take one pepper and cut it in half and kind of lay it flat on like a plate and then put toppings on it, but you can do whatever you want. But that's it for recipe number 2. All right, for the third and final dinner recipe for this video, we are going to be making some Mediterranean chicken bowls, okay? So the general basis for this is we're going to make our rice, make our chicken, and then we're going to make a little cucumber, tomato, onion, olive salad. And then you just combine them all in a bowl and it's delicious. So we're gonna make that. For this recipe, you are going to, like I said, you're going to need chicken, rice, and then the ingredients for like cucumber, tomato salad. All of it's gonna go in the same bowl at the end, but that's kind of how I break it up in my mind. This is another recipe I found on Pinterest, so I will link it below. So you're gonna need 1 to 1.5 pounds of chicken breast. And then you'll need some rice. You can do white rice, you can do brown rice, so any kind of rice. And then for the cucumber tomato salad, you're gonna need an English cucumber, 4 Roma tomatoes. I wanna say you need lemon juice for both the chicken marinade and the cucumber salad, so I've got a couple lemons. And then you'll also need some red onion. This is a massive red onion. And then for seasonings, you'll need olive oil, white wine vinegar, salt, pepper, thyme, oregano, garlic powder, dill seasoning, and that's it. So what I always do with this recipe is I start with my chicken first. So I am going to do the chicken marinade, and I'm going to let the marinade sit while I get the rice started and while I chop up like the tomato, chop up the cucumber, and get this started too. So we're gonna start with the chicken. I forgot to mention that you do need Kalamata olives for the cucumber and tomato salad mixture. The chicken has been marinating for maybe about 20-30 minutes as I have gotten the brown rice started on the stove and then was making this. So I am going to sit this in the fridge, and I'm gonna go ahead and get the chicken started. And then after that, we're just gonna wait for the rice to be done. that is it for recipe number 3. I hope you enjoy it. Again, I will link everything down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.